Hi, thanks for coming on. Andy speaking, Friday the 12th of September. Right, I'm only going to cover Scotland this week because, as a lot of you know, some of you don't, my mother-in-law recently passed away, ex-mother-in-law, so I've been busy with that. And I've just moved back to Bournemouth as well, so very busy time. Members' bets have continued, but I've been behind on the videos. But we'll be back to normal next week with England and Scotland. But right, let's get on with Scotland. Aberdeen Livingston first up, 44-24, 32. The Dons have yet to score. 3 outings, 2 home defeats to Celtic and Falkirk, a 2-0 defeat on the road at Hearts. I don't think the Celtic and Hearts results are surprises. Certainly not to me, they're not. Livingston beat Falkirk, went down 2-1 at home to Hearts, 3-0 at Celtic, got a draw at Killie. Tough game to call. I don't think there'll be a lot of goals. I could be wrong. I certainly wouldn't want to be rowing into Aberdeen. There's a bit of value in Livingston at 11-4 at 32% if you fancy it. Dundee Motherwell 30-26-44. Dundee 2 draws on the road, 2 defeats at home to Dundee United and Hibs, drawn at Killie and Rangers. Rangers look absolutely atrocious, by the way. Motherwell, they've got 4 points, 4 draws, not lost. Drew at Hearts, drew at St Mirren, drew with Killie and Rangers at home. If I had to play, I would favour Motherwell, obviously. I mean, the figures say that as well, but the value's with Dundee. But it's, do you know what? It's a very, very tough coupon in the Premiership this week. Moving on, Falkirk, St Mirren, 40-27-33. Falkirk won at Aberdeen, drew at home to Dundee United, turned over at Livingston. Now, St Mirren not performed as well as I'd expected. But the only defeat has come away at Celtic, and that was 1-0. The other 3 games have been draws against Hibs, Motherwell and Rangers. So I suppose any team in this division, if you said, OK, you'll get beat 1-0 by Rangers, draw 1-1, 1-0 by Celtic, draw 1-1 with Rangers, you take that. But, and away at Hibs, I suppose you can credit them with that. I think it's a tough game to call. If I was going to bet this game, I certainly would bet St Mirren. This figure is well, I'm not going to say it's wrong because it's come out that way, but to my mind, it's wrong. I certainly wouldn't consider backing Falkirk. Absolutely no chance. Rangers Hearts 55-23-22. I do think Rangers. They've drawn every game, but a draw here to Dundee. That's no good. They drew here at home to Celtic 0-0, draws on the road at Motherwell and St Mirren. That's not good enough. I mean, when you look at Rangers fixtures, you would expect probably, 9 points from that, 7. You'd expect them to beat St Mirren and Dundee. A draw at Motherwell is probably acceptable, and a defeat at Celtic. So Rangers really should be on 7 or 9 points. They're on 4, and they've scored 3 goals. It's not good enough, not by a long chalk. Hearts 1-3, drawn 1. They've won at Dundee United and Livingston, beat Aberdeen at home, drew at home to Motherwell. They're level on points with Celtic. I think they're clear 3rd best team in the division. They could even end up being 2nd come the end of the season. It wouldn't surprise me because we know they've got a fantastic manager in Derek McInnes, and the clown that's in charge of Rangers I don't think he's long for the job. Would I back anything in this game? No. I think Rangers probably will win. But either result wouldn't surprise me. But it's not very often you're going to find Rangers 3-4 at home, I'll tell you now. Kilmarnock Celtic 12-22-66. No point in backing this. Fair play to Killie. They're unbeaten. Played 4, draw 4. Hibs Motherwell on the road. Livingston Dundee at home. It's been a very funny opening in the Scottish Premiership. There's 2.5 points in at 12%. Celtic should win. 4's on for an away side. Not a chance. I would entertain that. Hibernian and Dundee United. Hibs let us down the other week. They were 2-0 up against Killie as well. And they let Killie back in and snatch a draw. That was disappointing. I thought there'd be a battle on for 3rd this season between them and Hearts. I don't think it's going to be the case from what we've seen earlier on. Hibs ought to be winning this tomorrow. Dundee United have won at Dundee, drawn at Falkirk, lost at home to Hearts. I think Hibs should win. but it's tough. Best bet, if I had to have a bet in this division, it would probably be St Mirren. Now, you're going to say, what? 0.3 at 33% when you get 0.7. I know that is a better all-round bet, but I just think they're a far better side than Falkirk St Mirren, but the figures haven't come out that way. And I don't influence the figures myself. I let the figures find themselves, but my own personal feeling on St Mirren is they're way better than Falkirk. Right, let's go on to the Championship. Tough coupon again, I think, in the Championship, isn't it? There's games here which is just so tight to call, and value is extremely thin on the ground. Partick Airdrie tonight. Partick ought to be winning this. Beat Wraith here, drew with Morton, won at Ross on the road, got a 5-1 doing it at St Johnstone, but St Johnstone are way ahead of these lot, honestly. Well, I think they are, and our figures dictate that as well. Airdrie lost both games on the road at Arbroath and Dunfermline. A Partick better than both of those. Probably better than Arbroath. Wouldn't say they're better than Dunfermline, but we'll see at the end of the season. But Partick should win this. 8-13 is just a bit on the short side. Arbroath Dunfermline 30-28-42. Arbroath have won 3 games, all against the bottom 3. Ross, Airdrie and Queen's Park. Drew with Ayr, lost at St Johnstone 3-0. Hard to say. Dunfermline on the road, lost at Wraith, drew at Morton, beat Airdrie, drew with Ross at home. So, when looking at the form's not really telling us a lot. In terms of manager and squad, Dunfermline are way ahead, but I wouldn't want to be taking 4-3. I think that's a bit of a naff price, personally. Ayr Ross 38-24-38. I can't. These are the games that sort of, if you can't sleep at night, try and fathom them out. Ayr have lost at home to Wraith, drew with Queen's Park. Now, Ross at bottom of the table, probably got the second best squad in the division. They've lost every game at home to St Johnstone, Arbroath and Partick. They've drawn away at Dunfermline and Airdrie. They had a new manager in charge last week. I thought they would probably rise to the occasion. They didn't. They were turned over. I said at the start of the season I thought that St Johnstone were the side to be on in this division, and I'm even more convinced now, because the only team that I felt that could touch St Johnstone was Ross. The others won't. Wraith will fade. Arbroath will fade. Dunfermline will probably be my best bet to chase them home over the course of the season. But as for tomorrow, if I was going to have a bet, I'd bet Ross, but it's not a game to play in. Queen's Park Morton 38-24-38, exactly the same applies to this. Queen's Park at home, lost to Arbroath, drawn every game on the road. Morton, drawn every game on the road. So how do you assess a game like this? Queen's Park have drawn every game at home. Morton have drawn every game on the away from home. Now, none of these teams have actually won yet. Very, very hard to assess the Championship this week. Wraith St Johnstone 30-25-45. They're both on 10 points. Wraith have played a game more, but the opposition at Wraith have beaten. They've beaten Morton, Ayr, Dunfermline, lost at Partick, and drew at home to Queen's Park. St Johnstone, if we look at St Johnstone, they've beaten Arbroath and Partick. Third place Arbroath 3-0. Fourth place Partick 5-1. And they won away at Ross, who were considered to be the favourites for this division. There's a draw in there with Morton as well. I think St Johnstone are far the best team in this division. Our current rating on St Johnstone has them 8th in the Premiership. That's way ahead of anything in this division. Best bet in this division, if I had to have a bet, it would be St Johnstone, 0.2 at 45% away at Wraith. Right, let's move on to League One. Of course, we're on Inverness here, but they had a points deduction. I still think they're going to hose up anyway. Simple as that, But, right, Alloa, Montrose, 60-24-16. Alloa have beaten Stenhouse, Muir, Hamilton and East Fife. I think the win against Hamilton, for me, is huge. I think Hamilton probably the second best team in the division. After Inverness, and Alloa only went down 1-0 at Inverness last time out. That was a spirited performance. Prior to that, they'd won all 3. They're third in the table, 3 points behind. Well, they're not 3 points behind Inverness, but they would be if Inverness hadn't got the points deduction. Montrose on the road have lost at Hamilton 2-0, drawn at Cove. Their only win has been against Peterhead, who for our money are the worst or second worst team in the division. Montrose have also lost to Inverness at home 2-0 and Hamilton 2-0. How bookmakers are pricing up Alloa at 11-8, I don't know. Is the fix in? I don't know. But point is, Alloa should be 4-6. They're 11-8. I can't understand why they're odds against. I mean, I've got connections at Montrose. And they said it will be a very, very tough game tomorrow. That's what they said to me. So they're not expecting anything from that game, I can tell you that. That doesn't influence these figures. I don't have connections at any other clubs in Scotland like I do Montrose. Arbroath, a friend of mine, her brother, is on the board at Arbroath. But he thinks he's positive and upbeat every game, so it's not like the stuff I get told from Montrose. They're pretty downbeat at Montrose. But right, let's move on. East Fife against Queen of the South, 36-28-36. Tough game to assess. East Fife beating Kelty here, lost to Alloa. Queen of the South on the road, won at Cove, who are bottom, drawn at Steny. Tough game to assess, very tough game to assess. I would just side with Queen of the South if I was going to have a bet, but with no real confidence. I thought East Fife were far too short at the 7-5. Kelty against Steny, 29-27-44. Kelty is second bottom, but I think they've had a tough start, haven't they? I mean, let's be realistic. They've only played one home game. That was against Inverness. They've been away at Queen of the South, who is probably the second or third best team in the league. They've had a tough trip to East Fife, and they've won away at Montrose. That's what makes this game even more interesting. That Kelty won away at Montrose, and Kelty, for our money, are probably the worst or second worst team in the division. I can't understand that for the life of me. I really can't. Steny, one win on the road, away at Inverness. I just cannot get my head round that. Overconfidence or something may have crept into Inverness. I don't know. But they won at Inverness and lost at home to Alloa. Again, no matter how you look at this bet, whatever game you read, it seems to add meat to the bones to Alloa against Montrose. Should Steny be evens? I don't think so. Yes, they've won at Inverness, but it doesn't. That was probably, well, I know it was a lackadaisical performance, so I wouldn't read too much into that. Peterhead, Hamilton, 36-24-40. Peterhead done better than I expected. They've beaten East Fife and Cove at home. They were two games which, well, not necessarily Cove, but East Fife, I remember saying, is a game they had to win if they're going to want to stay up this season, and they did 4-1. Cove have performed appallingly, but we'll come to them in a minute. On the road, Peterhead have been done at Montrose, Queen of the South, and Inverness. Hamilton on the road won at Queen of the South 4-1. And they look well set, but the rot set in quickly, didn't it? They got done at home to East Fife, lost away at Alloa, drew with Cove. I don't know. They started so well, and I don't know. The rot. I don't know. There's something wrong at Hamilton. Don't know what. Cove Inverness 20-24-56. Cove for our money, we had fifth on figures. It was probably, well, I mean, they've had a poor start. I mean, there's no excuses either. It's not like they've been away at Inverness and been away at Alloa. They've been away at Stenhousemuir, Peterhead and Hamilton. And the team that you would expect them not to get something from, they did at Hamilton. They're 3-1 doing at Peterhead's poor. They drew at home to Montrose 3-3, lost at home to Queen of the South. They're not a great side at all, Cove, this season. Inverness on the road have won at Montrose 2-0, Kelty 3-0. They've beaten Alloa at home 1-0, Peterhead at home 2-0, lost at home to Stenhousemuir 2-1. But I do like the way they bounced back. I think they'll win this. 2's on is just far too skinny for a side that lost at home to Steny. It just goes to show that at this level you can get the odd bad performance thrown in, but I think we've backed the maximum twice this season, didn't we? They won once and didn't win, and the other time was against Steny. There's 2 maximums for members this week, actually, by the way. Right, Scottish League 2. Before we go on to Scottish League 2, there's just a bit of information I'm going to share with you. Now, as you know, a couple of months ago, I did say to Tottenham fans that asked me about Spurs, and I speak to regularly, I did tell you that Daniel Levy would be going. I told you Mike Charrington would be the chairman, and I told you that Vivian and Charles Lewis, I called her Valerie in an email I sent to members. I do apologise. Her name is Vivian. Valerie was my ex-mother-in-law who has just passed away, sadly. So, anyway, right, Tottenham. Joe Lewis owns ENIC, who own Tottenham. Well, he owns Tavistock, who own ENIC, who own Tottenham. Vivian and Charles Lewis are in charge at Tottenham now. I don't care about Mike Charrington. He's just the eyes and ears and the mouthpiece. The Lewis children are at Tottenham. Now, Vivian Lewis fell out with Donna Cullen, who was Daniel Levy's right-hand woman, sacked her, and then Charles Lewis was basically, he's pissed off with the fact that Levy had upset every chairman in world football pretty much. So, some bad times, but I think there's some very, very good news for you Spurs fans on the horizon, and I can tell you here exclusively, Tottenham will break their transfer record in January. I'm not going to give you the name here, but it will be a record. And in the summer, they will break the £100 million barrier. I'm not going to give you any names, but I'll give you a clue. They loaned Paulinho, who's a holding mid, and they've loaned a guy called Kolo Muani, who can play out left or central attack. Those two players are on loan. They're going to fill those two positions with purchases, which, as I say, will be the thick end of 200 million. 180 million is what I'm told. Now, reason why the Lewis children are going to spend money is the club's valued at 3.2 billion. The Qatar lot are ready to bid. The club is valued at 3.2 billion at the moment, and that's what Qatar see them at. Now, Tottenham want 4 billion for it, okay? Because Daniel Levy owns 29.7% of ENIC, which roughly equates to a quarter of Tottenham. So Daniel Levy actually owns 25% of Tottenham. And part of the agreement with Daniel Levy stepping aside and resigning was that Daniel Levy walked away with £1 billion. So the club's got to be sold for 4 billion. Now, it's only worth 3.2. To get the club to the £4 billion, which Joe Lewis, Daniel Levy, etc. want, the Lewis children, basically ENIC, have got to invest because there is an 800 million discrepancy between the current value of the club and the price that they want to sell for. Which is, I say, there's an £800 million discrepancy. Now, to bridge that £800 million discrepancy, they're investing 300 million, 100 million in January and 200 in the summer. So I would expect this time next year Tottenham to be in the Champions League and pushing maybe for a title challenge this time next season. And I can exclusively tell you as well that Fabio Paratici, who is talent spot or whatever, and Johan Lang, who's, I think he's a director of football, they're going to be surplus to requirements. Now, if all goes according to plan, there's a manager of a country going to the World Cup. It's not Pochettino. Sorry to disappoint you, Tottenham fans, but who's already been talked about. Now, this manager is going to take a sabbatical after the World Cup next year, and he will come back into club management at the start of the 2027 season. Now, if all goes to plan, Tottenham will start the 2027 season under Qatar ownership, with this manager in charge who, for my money, is probably in the top 2 or 3 managers in the world. Okay? So Tottenham, the sleeping giant, is finally about to awaken. They've got revenue streams like no other club in the world. I wouldn't tell you the revenue that Tottenham take per week. It's absolutely embarrassing compared to what they spend. But the plan is for Thomas Frank to get them to a certain level. Obviously, if Thomas Frank delivers trophies, he will stay in the job. I've no doubt about that. But I'm told that Thomas Frank has got to deliver Champions League, European football this season. So Europa League, Champions League. Next season, they need to see a push for the title and a Champions League place guaranteed. And then that will get the club up towards the £4 billion level that they want. So if all goes according to plan, and people can say, oh, you don't know what's going to happen in 2 years, take it from me. All things like this are worked out a long, long, long time in advance. I can tell you that they wanted to Dominic Solanke for 18 months because he was they players. I'm not going to tell you the two names, but both of these players, which I've said to you about, one will be signed in January, the other in the summer. They're both players in the Premiership. That's all I'm going to tell you. And tomorrow, if you're watching the game between West Ham and Tottenham, I guarantee to you that Vivian and Charles Lewis will be in attendance with Vinay, who is Tottenham's current head honcho. And I absolutely guarantee to you that Sky will make sure the cameras pick them up numerous times. That's already been sorted out. Just a bit of information to pass on for Tottenham fans. So you're in for a very, very good time. If I could get a bet on now that Tottenham win the league by 2030 at a reasonable price, I would. So Tottenham fans, you're in for a good time. Take it from me. I did tell you, didn't I, back in May, that Levy wouldn't be there. I told you Charrington would take over. I'm not going to say who I know. Well, I know a journalist who knows someone very, very, very high up in Amstrad. That's all I'm going to say. Right. Scottish League 2, Ann and Clyde, 38-24, 38. Very tough game to assess this. What do I think of them? I think they're both much of a muchness. Clyde have yet to win. Annan beat Elgin here 3-2. They lost at home to Dumbarton 4-3. But they've not won since the opening game of the season. Clyde have yet to win. They've had 3 draws, 2 defeats. They would draw at Stranraer, who are probably the worst team in the division, and a 2-1 defeat at Dumbarton last time out. Very, very hard game to assess. Right, Edinburgh, East Kilbride, 36-24, 40. They should not be even money. Right, I mean, everybody knows I'm on East Kilbride, maximum to win this division. Every single anti-post bet East Kilbride, well, bar the singles, they're in doubles, trebles, everything. East Kilbride, my whole season is based around East Kilbride winning Scottish League 2. Take that from me. Well, it is. Edinburgh lost at home to Stirling first game, and they've won 3 of the last 4. I don't think they should be 13-5 for this. I think it's far too big. Do I think East Kilbride will be ahead of them at the end of the season? Absolutely. But I think East Kilbride's wins on the road have been at Stirling and Elgin. They've beaten Forfar and Stranraer at home. This is a very tough test tomorrow. I'm not saying Edinburgh certs or anything like that, but I'm just saying that East Kilbride should not be as short as even money. They are the most likeliest winners, but not by much. But that is a huge price about Edinburgh. Elgin Stirling, 42-26, 32. Elgin look a bit lost to me this season. Been turned over at home by East Kilbride and Edinburgh. They've lost at Annan, drawn at Clyde and Dumbarton, yet to pick up a win, yet they're putting here at odds on. Please tell me how somebody against a team that has won at Edinburgh. Strange one. I'm not saying Stirling are going to win. I'm just saying they should not be anywhere near 10-11. They are the most likeliest winners, but 10-11 you can keep it. Forfar Dumbarton, 48-24, 28. They've won both games at home, Forfar against Stirling and Stranraer. Do I expect this to continue tomorrow? I think this is probably a bit of a step up. Dumbarton have won both on the road at Spartans and Annan as well, so I certainly wouldn't rule Dumbarton out. Figures have come in favourably for Forfar, but there's no value there. Stranraer against Spartans, 19-26-55. Stranraer are probably the worst team in the division. They are bottom, and I drawn 1, lost 4. I can't see them getting anything tomorrow at home to Spartans. Spartans have won at East Kilbride and Clyde. They've won both times on the road. I do think there will be East Kilbride's biggest challenge this season. I really do, but I think they'll win tomorrow. But if you're asking me whether I should take 17-20, the answer is no. Best bet in this division, Edinburgh, clearly. Got the most value in. It's a decent figure as well. Right, that's it. We will be back with England next week. But Manchester Derby, somebody asked me about. I think City will win. I don't think City are any great shakes at all. They look a million miles behind Arsenal and Liverpool. United shouldn't have beaten Burnley. I think they're just a mid-table average team. I really do. I don't think the manager will be long for this world. And yes, so that's it, really, guys. But as I say, Tottenham fans, keep your pecker up. Promise you, good times are coming. That's it. Good to be back. And next week we'll be covering Scotland, all of England. We'll have the weekly double and treble, and everything will be back to normal. I'm just waiting for my carpets to dry out in my new place at the moment. And that's it. Be back next week. That's it. Bye for now.